It's not the hum of traffic outside your window. It's not the static of a television left on in the other room. It's not the whisper of wind through the cracks in the frame. No, this sound is older than that. It's the sound of a question you never asked, rising from the floor of your stomach at 3 a.m. when the world is sleeping and you are wide awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they're maps to somewhere you've never been but can't forget. This is the problem that won't let you go. And you've tried. God, you've tried. You've tried to outrun it. You've tried to outsmart it. You've tried to bury it beneath the weight of productivity, beneath the noise of distractions, beneath the hollow comfort of "I'll deal with it tomorrow." But tomorrow came, and it brought the problem with it, sitting in the passenger seat of your car, standing in the corner of your office, lying in bed beside you like a lover who forgot how to leave. You've named it. You've cursed it. You've bargained with it. You've screamed into pillows and cried into steering wheels and written letters you'll never send. And still, it stays. Because this problem, this relentless, stubborn, impossible thing, it knows something you don't. It knows that you are not finished. Let me tell you something that might break you open a little. That problem, the one that won't let you go, it's not here to destroy you. I know it feels like destruction. I know it feels like drowning. I know it feels like the universe has singled you out for a special kind of torture. But what if, just what if, that problem is the only thing holding you to the earth? What if it's the gravity you needed to keep from floating away into a life that meant nothing? Because here's the truth. The problems that leave are the ones that never mattered. They drift away like smoke, like echoes, like memories of a song you heard once and forgot. But the ones that stay, the ones that dig their roots into your bones and refuse to let go, those are the ones that are trying to tell you something. They are not your enemy. They are your mirror. They are the reflection of everything you've been too afraid to see, too exhausted to face, too proud to admit exists. And I know you're tired. I know your hands are shaking. I know you've been carrying this weight so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to stand up straight. But listen to me, listen to the silence between the words I'm saying, because that's where the truth lives. You are not the problem. And you are not its victim. You are the space where the problem meets the possibility. You are the tension between the question and the answer. You are the breath before the scream. You are the comma, not the period. The sentence isn't finished. The story isn't over. The problem hasn't won, it's just been waiting for you to stop running, the uninvited guest. That is what the problem that won't let you go truly is. It does not announce itself with a polite knock or a gentle ring of the doorbell. It does not wait for you to be ready, to be rested, to be fortified with coffee and courage and a plan. No, this problem, the one that has burrowed itself into the marrow of your days, it arrives like a thief in the night, or more accurately, like a wrecking ball at 3 a.m. when your defenses are down, when the world has gone quiet, and when there is nothing left to distract you from the sound of your own heart hammering against your ribs. It breaks down the door of your consciousness with a violence that feels personal, and then, without asking permission, it makes itself at home in your chest. It unpacks its bags in the hollow spaces between your breaths. It hangs its heavy coat over the chair where peace used to sit. It turns on every light in every room of your mind, and then it just stands there, arms crossed, waiting for you to acknowledge its presence. You have tried to ignore it. You have tried to pretend that the footsteps you hear in the hallway of your thoughts are just echoes, just imagination, just the residue of a long and exhausting day. But the problem is not a ghost. It is not a figment. It is as real as the ache in your shoulders, as real as the tension in your jaw, as real as the way your stomach knots itself into a fist every time you remember that it is still there, still waiting, still watching. You have tried to reason with it. You have tried to negotiate. You have said, not now. Please, not now. I have work in the morning. I have children to feed. I have a life to pretend to live, but the problem does not care about your schedule. It does not care about your exhaustion. It does not care about the carefully constructed walls you have built around yourself to keep it out. It is an uninvited guest, and uninvited guests do not follow the rules of hospitality. They do not leave when you ask them to. They do not respect your boundaries. They do not care that you are tired of their company. And yet, and this is where the truth begins to twist itself into something strange and unexpected, this uninvited guest, this intruder, this relentless occupant of your inner space, it is not here to destroy you. I know that sounds impossible. I know it feels like destruction. I know that when you lie awake at night and feel the weight of it pressing down on your chest, you feel like you are being crushed, like you are being erased, like the very essence of who you are is being slowly siphoned away by this thing that refuses to leave. But what if the destruction is not the point? What if the breaking down of the door, the invasion of your quiet, the unsettlement of your peace, what if all of it is the only way something new can enter? Because here is the uncomfortable, unpolished, unglamorous truth about human beings: we do not change when we are comfortable. We do not grow when we are safe. We do not evolve when the house is tidy and the lights are dim and the world is exactly as we want it to be. We change when something breaks. We grow when something invades. We evolve when something uninvited shows up at the door of our soul and refuses to leave until we have looked it in the eye. So that problem that will not let you go, that uninvited guest that has made itself at home in your chest, it is not your enemy. It is your unwelcome teacher. It is your rude, persistent, maddening mentor. It is the thing that has come to strip away everything that is not real, everything that is not true, everything that is not you. And yes, it is loud. Yes, it is intrusive. Yes, it is the problem that won't let you go. It holds up a mirror, but this mirror does not show you what you expect. It does not show you your best angle, your polished smile, the version of yourself you present to the world in carefully curated conversations and filtered photographs. No, this mirror is crueler than that. It shows you the cracks. It shows you the parts of yourself you have spent years trying to seal shut, the wounds you thought had scarred over, the fears you convinced yourself you had buried 6 feet deep. And because it shows you these things, because it refuses to flatter you, to lie to you, to let you hide behind the comfortable fiction of who you pretend to be, you call it the enemy. You call it the problem. You call it the thing that is ruining your life. But what if the mirror is not lying to you? What if the mirror is the only honest thing you have ever encountered? Think about it. Every day, you move through a world that is designed to deceive you. People tell you what you want to hear. Social media feeds you a curated stream of highlight reels that make everyone else look like they have figured it out while you are still fumbling in the dark. Your own mind, in its desperate attempt to protect you, constructs elaborate narratives about why you are fine, why you are coping, why everything will be better once you just push through a little longer. These are the lies you live inside. These are the comfortable blankets you wrap around yourself when the cold wind of truth starts to blow. And then the problem arrives, uninvited, unannounced, uncompromising, and it tears those blankets away. It stands you in front of a glass that has no mercy, no agenda, no desire to soothe you. And it says, look. Look at what you have been running from. Look at what you have been refusing to name. Look at what is actually there, not what you wish was there, And you hate it for that. You hate it because it forces you to see the part of yourself that is afraid, the part that is angry, the part that is desperate, the part that is lonely even in a crowded room. You hate it because it shows you your own capacity for failure, for weakness, for contradiction. You hate it because it makes you confront the gap between who you are and who you thought you would be by now. That gap is painful. That gap is humiliating. That gap is the reason you have spent so many years constructing elaborate defenses, building walls, perfecting the art of distraction. And the problem, the mirror, it does not care about your defenses. It walks right through them. It stands in the middle of your carefully ordered life and reflects back the chaos you have been trying to hide. But here is what you have not considered. The mirror that lies is the one that tells you everything is fine when it is not. The mirror that lies is the one that smooths over your rough edges and convinces you that you do not need to change. The mirror that lies is the one that keeps you small, keeps you comfortable, keeps you trapped in a version of yourself that is slowly suffocating under the weight of its own denial. The problem that won't let you go, the mirror that shows you the truth, that is the only thing that has ever loved you enough to tell you the truth. It is not the enemy. It is the witness. It is the reflection of everything you have been too afraid to see, and in that reflection, there is not destruction waiting for you. There is liberation. There is the chance to finally stop pretending. There is the chance to look at the whole, messy, contradictory, beautiful truth of who you are and say, yes, this is me. All of this is me. And I am still standing, and in that moment, the mirror stops being a threat and becomes a door. You have felt it, haven't you? That weight around your ankles as you try to move forward, that invisible tether that yanks you backward every time you think you have finally escaped. The problem that won't let you go, it holds you down. It anchors you to a past you wish you could forget, to a failure you wish you could undo, to a version of yourself that you have desperately tried to outgrow. And because it holds you down, you call it your prison. You call it your chain. You call it the thing that is preventing you from flying. But what if you have been looking at the tether all wrong? What if that same cord that binds you to the ground is also the only thing preventing you from floating away into a life that has no substance, no meaning, no anchor to the person you are actually meant to become? Think about what it means to be untethered. Think about what it means to have nothing holding you, nothing pulling you, nothing reminding you of where you have been and what you have survived. At first, that sounds like freedom. It sounds like release. It sounds like the sweet relief of finally being unburdened by the weight of your own history. But freedom without a tether is not freedom at all, it is drift. It is the slow, imperceptible dissolution of identity. It is the terrifying sensation of looking down and realizing you have no roots, no grounding, no connection to the person who went through everything you went through to bring you to this moment. The problem that holds you down is also the thread that connects you to your own story. It is the filament that runs through every chapter of your life, linking the wounded child to the struggling adult, linking the shattered dream to the new one that is still being built, linking the moment you fell to the moment you decided to stand back up. And here is the paradox that will break your mind if you let it. The very thing that feels like it is suffocating you is also the thing that is keeping you breathing. The very thing that feels like it is dragging you under is also the thing that is keeping you afloat. Because the problem that won't let you go, it is the evidence that you are still fighting. It is the proof that you have not given up. It is the scar that tells the story of the wound, yes, but also the story of the healing. It is the knot that ties you to every version of yourself that refused to quit, that refused to disappear, that refused to let the darkness have the final word. Without that tether, you would not remember who you were when you were broken. Without that anchor, you would not know how far you have climbed. Without that pull, you would lose the tension that creates the music of your survival. You see, a thread is not a cage. A thread is what connects you to the loom. It is what holds the fabric together even as it is being woven. And you are not finished being woven. The problem that holds you down is also the thread that runs through the unfinished pattern of your life, connecting every part of you that has been stretched, tangled, and tested. It is not your enemy. It is your continuity. It is the line that traces your journey from the person you were to the person you are becoming. So stop trying to cut it. Stop trying to sever yourself from the very thing that makes you whole. Instead, hold the thread in your hands. Feel its texture. Feel its strength. Feel the way it has never once snapped, even when the weight was unbearable. And then pull yourself forward, not away from the problem, but with it, because the problem is not separate from you. It is the string that ties you to your own unbreakable story. You have been drowning in noise for so long that you have forgotten what silence sounds like. The problem that won't let you go, it screams. It shouts. It fills your head with a relentless cacophony of what-ifs and if-onlys, of worst-case scenarios and replaying failures, of voices that are not yours but have taken up residence in your skull like squatters who refuse to pay rent. It is loud, this problem. It is deafening. It is the reason you cannot sleep, cannot focus, cannot hear yourself think over the constant static of its presence. And because it is so loud, you assume that the answer must be louder. You assume that you must fight noise with noise, that you must shout back, that you must overpower the problem with more thinking, more planning, more analyzing, more frantic attempts to solve it through sheer force of will. But what if the answer is not in the noise? What if the answer is hiding in the only place the noise cannot reach, the silence between the noise? Think about the moments when the noise is at its peak. Your mind is racing. Your heart is pounding. The problem is spinning in your head like a record stuck on the same skipping track, playing the same painful loop over and over until you feel like you are going to crawl out of your own skin. And in those moments, you do the only thing you know how to do, you fight. You reason. You argue with yourself. You try to think your way out of the problem, to logic your way to a solution, to mentally wrestle the monster into submission. But the more you fight, the louder the noise becomes. The more you struggle, the tighter the problem grips you. It is like quicksand. The more you thrash, the deeper you sink. And in that desperate thrashing, you miss the one thing that could save you, the quiet pulse that beats beneath the chaos, the steady rhythm that has been there all along, waiting for you to stop shouting long enough to hear it. Because here is the truth that will unsettle you. The problem is not the noise. The noise is your reaction to the problem. The problem itself is something else entirely. It is a question, a tension, a discomfort that has been trying to get your attention. But your mind, in its infinite capacity for self-torture, has taken that problem and amplified it into a cacophony of fear and anxiety and obsessive thinking. You have added layers of noise on top of the problem until you cannot even see the original thing anymore. You are not wrestling with the problem, you are wrestling with the noise you have created around the problem. And the noise will never give you an answer because the noise is not the source, it is the distortion. The answer does not live in the shouting. The answer lives in the silence that exists between your thoughts, in the gaps between the panic, in the micro moments when your mind goes still and something older and wiser than your fear has room to breathe. That is what the problem that won't let you go is actually asking you to do. It is not asking you to solve it with the frantic energy of a trapped animal. It is asking you to stop. It is asking you to sit in the middle of the chaos and listen for the pulse that has been there all along, the pulse of your own being, the pulse of your own truth, the pulse of the answer that cannot be shouted into existence but can only be received in the stillness. The problem is the messenger, and the message is not in the volume, it is in the vibration. So quiet the noise. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel the rhythm beneath the racket. Because that rhythm, that quiet, persistent, and you have been drowning in noise for so long that you have forgotten what silence sounds like. The problem that won't let you go, it screams. It shouts. It fills your head with a relentless cacophony of what-ifs and if-onlys, of worst-case scenarios and replaying failures, of voices that are not yours but have taken up residence in your skull like squatters who refuse to pay rent. It is loud, this problem. It is deafening. It is the reason you cannot sleep, cannot focus, cannot hear yourself think over the constant static of its presence. And because it is so loud, you assume that the answer must be louder. You assume that you must fight noise with noise, that you must shout back, that you must overpower the problem with more thinking, more planning, more analyzing, more frantic attempts to solve it through sheer force of will. But what if the answer is not in the noise? What if the answer is hiding in the only place the noise cannot reach, the silence between the noise? Think about the moments when the noise is at its peak. Your mind is racing. Your heart is pounding. The problem is spinning in your head like a record stuck on the same skipping track, playing the same painful loop over and over until you feel like you are going to crawl out of your own skin. And in those moments, you do the only thing you know how to do, you fight. You reason. You argue with yourself. You try to think your way out of the problem, to logic your way to a solution, to mentally wrestle the monster into submission. But the more you fight, the louder the noise becomes. The more you struggle, the tighter the problem grips you. It is like quicksand. The more you thrash, the deeper you sink. And in that desperate thrashing, you miss the one thing that could save you, the quiet pulse that beats beneath the chaos, the steady rhythm that has been there all along, waiting for you to stop shouting long enough to hear it. Because here is the truth that will unsettle you. The problem is not the noise. The noise is your reaction to the problem. The problem itself is something else entirely. It is a question, a tension, a discomfort that has been trying to get your attention. But your mind, in its infinite capacity for self-torture, has taken that problem and amplified it into a cacophony of fear and anxiety and obsessive thinking. You have added layers of noise on top of the problem until you cannot even see the original thing anymore. You are not wrestling with the problem, you are wrestling with the noise you have created around the problem. And the noise will never give you an answer because the noise is not the source, it is the distortion. The answer does not live in the shouting. The answer lives in the silence that exists between your thoughts, in the gaps between the panic, in the micro moments when your mind goes still and something older and wiser than your fear has room to breathe. That is what the problem that won't let you go is actually asking you to do. It is not asking you to solve it with the frantic energy of a trapped animal. It is asking you to stop. It is asking you to sit in the middle of the chaos and listen for the pulse that has been there all along, the pulse of your own being, the pulse of your own truth, the pulse of the answer that cannot be shouted into existence but can only be received in the stillness. The problem is the messenger, and the message is not in the volume, it is in the vibration. So quiet the noise. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel the rhythm beneath the racket. Because that rhythm, that quiet, persistent, and you have been taught to see endings everywhere. You have been taught that a problem unresolved is a story unfinished, that a wound unhealed is a sentence without closure, that a question unanswered is a failure of the narrative. And so you look at the problem that won't let you go, this persistent, relentless, maddening presence in your life, and you assume it is the period. You assume it is the final word. You assume it is the full stop at the end of everything you hope to become. But you have been looking at the punctuation all wrong. You have been reading your own life with tired eyes and a frightened heart. Because the problem that won't let you go is not the period. It is not the end. It is not the closing door, the final chapter, the last breath of your story. It is the comma that refuses to let the sentence die. And that comma is the most powerful thing you will ever possess. Think about what a comma does. A comma does not end anything. A comma does not close the door. A comma does not say, this is finished, this is done, this is over, there is nothing more to see here. A comma says, wait. A comma says, there is more. A comma says, asterisk, do not stop reading. Do not stop breathing. Do not stop believing that something is still coming. Asterisk. A comma is the pause that creates anticipation. It is the silence that makes the next word matter more. It is the breath you take before you say the thing that changes everything. And you have been living inside a comma your whole life and mistaking it for a period. You have been looking at the pause and calling it the end. You have been looking at the interruption and calling it a conclusion. You have been looking at the unfinished business of your soul and calling it a failure. But here is what you need to understand. The problem that won't let you go is the comma, because it means your story is still being written. Every morning you wake up and the problem is still there, that is a comma. Every night you lie down and the problem is still whispering in your ear, that is a comma. Every time you take another step forward even though you do not know where you are going, that is a comma. The problem is not the period, because a period would mean the end of the struggle, but it would also mean the end of the growth. A period would mean the end of the tension, but it would also mean the end of the transformation. A period would mean the end of the pain, but it would also mean the end of the possibility. And you are not ready for the end. You are not ready for the final word. Because the final word would mean that everything you have been through has already been fully resolved, and you know, deep down, in the place where truth lives, that it has not. There is still something left. There is still something coming. There is still a part of the sentence that has not yet been spoken. So the problem stays. It stays because you are not finished. It stays because the sentence is not complete. It stays because there is a word you have not yet found, a truth you have not yet spoken, a version of yourself that has not yet been born. And the problem, this relentless, stubborn, impossible thing, it is not the enemy of your completion. It is the guardian of your becoming. It is the comma that holds the space for the rest of the sentence to arrive. And when it finally does arrive, when the sentence is finally complete, you will look back and realize that the comma was not a burden. It was a blessing. It was the thing that kept the story alive long enough for you to become the person who could finish it. You are not the period. You are the comma. And the comma refuses to let the sentence die. That is your power. That is your resistance. That is your eternal, unbreakable, unfinished beauty.